Hello, and welcome to Honor Talk. This is the podcast where we explore the legacy left behind in the wake of organ, eye, and tissue donation. I'm your host, Bobby Gomez. Just a quick note, the views and the stories that are shared here are my own. They do not represent any specific organ procurement organization. Thanks for pressing play today. Now let's get started. I want to welcome you to the podcast. I want to say thank you. I am absolutely 100% honored and privileged to be able to tell Nikki's story. I'm going to call her Nikki because that's what everybody that knew her called. And after all the pictures and videos that you sent me, I feel like I know her at least a little bit. But I'm hoping by the time this is over, I know her even better. Why don't you go ahead and just tell the people that are watching and listening, tell them about your relationship and how you're related to Nikki.
So I am biologically her aunt and her godmother. My brother is her dad. And so I ended up taking custody of her after my brother passed away. And I became her mother figure. But everybody that was on the outside looking in, they thought that she was truly my daughter because I treated her that way and she acted that way. So,
Man, looking at some of the pictures and like the letters and the Instagram posts, I mean, I don't know if blood could have made you any closer. You were mom. Like you were seen as mom. You were visually and verbally mom, So I don't want that to be taken from you because everything that I read and everything that I looked at, the videos that I've seen, and not to take anything away from the biological mother, because that's not the intent of this at all. But
right.
in her eyes, you were mom. So I'm very thankful that she had you in her life. I think that means a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about her? Tell us, what was her personality like? I mean, who was she?
Sometimes I go back and forth into the past she was versus she is because it's still really hard for me to say that she's gone. But she is super clumsy, but she's goofy and she's so loving and she's so giving. And that was her heart. She really just wanted to please everybody and to be there for everybody. So she was just so funny. She was quiet. She was so quiet from people that didn't really know her. But once they got to know her, they were like, wow, she's loud. She's crazy. She's funny. She's, like I said, we would always laugh at her because of her clumsiness. We would laugh and say, like, how is it that you can wear heels and not trip? But then when you're wearing, tennis shoes, you're like falling all over the place.
Say that because I saw that she was a cheerleader as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Coordinated enough to be a cheerleader for sure.
Yeah, she blossomed. I mean, and that's what a lot of people saw is that after, I took custody of her, she blossomed. My kids did football, soccer, cheer. I was one of the coaches or the team mom. So I was very heavily involved in a lot of their activities, if not all of them. And when I took custody of her, I was like, you're going to have to play something. You're not going to be allowed to stay home and do nothing because I wanted them out there. I wanted them in the community and I wanted them to also know what it felt like to be having fun and having goals. Because once you became an adult, I wanted her to have that foundation. And she, like I said, she really did blossom after. She was in choir before.
I saw that video. My God, can she sing?
Hmm.
Wow, I was like, that's her.
I actually found that after she had passed away. And she and Gigi were really, really close. And so that the year that she ended up passing, 2 days before she had gotten shot, she and Gigi were planning Gigi's 18th birthday. And Nika was going to be 21 that year. And she and I were planning her Vegas birthday. So there was a lot of planning that was going on then. And so, but going back to that video, that was their room. They had pink walls. And so when I saw that, it just showed me how much she really wanted to be out there. She loved singing. She did.
And Annabelle, so you are her biological aunt on her dad's side.
Paternal. Hmm? Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your brother and how the relationship. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my brother, he is 2.5 years younger than me. He passed away when he was 30 due to congestive heart failure. He had been diagnosed when he was 20, though. So that was something that he had been battling, and he was incarcerated for a few years. So when he was incarcerated, his congestive heart failure actually got managed very well because he was forced to take medication and he was forced to be on top of it. So when he got out, that was managed. But he watched out for me all the time. And that's why it was only like when I found out that they were having Nika, I was very involved. I wasn't like the meddling aunt or anything like that, but I was very involved from the very first time they found out that she was pregnant with her. I was so excited. And when he told me that I was going to be named her godmother, like that was such an honor because to me, a godparent really takes the place of the parent should they not be able to do so. And I honestly did not think that I was going to have to like take that, but I take that very, very seriously.
And it's real, right? I mean, you obviously have been
Yeah,
through
it really.
it's a real
Mhm.
responsibility
Mhm.
you did with such
And
grace.
thank you. And so as Nika was growing up, my brother, when I would tell him, I was like, hey, there's things that are coming up that you should probably talk to her about, like, because, her mom really wasn't in her life, right? So she was staying either with us, but when she was in the Bay Area, she was staying with her grandparents, her maternal grandparents. So she really did love them and they played a huge role in her life. I'm never going to take that away from them. But, when those milestones were coming up for my brother, I was like, she needs a bra, like she needs this and that, like girl things. And he was like,
Yes.
I ain't touching that. That's you. And so he did honestly like put me in that position a lot.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
it
I
was
could
just natural for me to do.
yeah, as a man, I mean, I have 3 boys, I don't have any girls, but I would have probably been completely lost too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do you think Nika would feel knowing that she helped to save other people? What do you think her sentiment if she could look back and look down on you and just be able to tell you how she felt about it, what do you think she would tell you?
I think she would say thank you to me because even though we made that decision on her behalf, I don't think that without a doubt that she would have said no. That was the type of person that she really was and is. So I really think that she would have been grateful to have saved that, especially that baby, to be able to give that baby a second chance in life. So
Before we get into
I think about them all the time.
before we get into the recipients, I want you to tell us a little bit about the events of the day. What happened? What happened to her so that people understand not only how she lived, because her life and her legacy are going to be 100% validated here, but I think given it's October and we want to talk about domestic violence and this being an awareness
Yes.
month, I think it's very important that people understand how we got here. Why are we in this room? Can you tell us a little bit about that day and kind of walk us through what that day looked like for you?
Sure. So January 28th, 2022, it was still, COVID was still rampant. It wasn't as bad as the previous years, but it was still rampant. And I was deployed with the state of California through what's called the CalMAP program. And so at the time, I was over at the District Operations Center, so what we called the doc. And so I was the chief over there. I was based out of Sacramento, so it was really close to us. But my incident commander was a medic, and so he had access to his contacts. Anyways, we're still like all over the place because he had also been in the Bay Area. And so I got a notification stating that Nika was missing and that nobody had known where she was, but something had happened to her. And I was like, what do you mean something had happened to her? And so they were like, I don't know. It was in Fremont and we don't know where she is. And so I really had like no kind of information. So I immediately started contacting the local hospitals. I was contacting the fire department. I was contacting the police stations. I was calling everybody, just trying to figure out what had happened. And in that meantime, I don't want to say his name, but her boyfriend at the time, her murderer, right? His mom had contacted me and she was telling me that there was an incident. She was still trying to figure things out, but it was at at a hotel. And so that was another piece of information that I then had. So I now had just two pieces of information. And so I was able to get a hold of Fremont Police Department, and they told me that there was an incident that had occurred the night before. And that's all that they could give me. And so
So at this point,
at
you
that
didn't even know
point,
what really happened. You just knew an
I
incident had
had
okay.
knew an incident had happened where police were involved. And because I had known and I had confronted her before about him hitting her, I was like, something inside of me was like, he better not have hurt her, And since his mom was telling me he didn't know what happened and the police were questioning him, like the doom of things and the way that the situation was unfolding for me rapidly, something inside felt like something was terribly wrong. And then so I was telling my incident commander what had happened, and I was like, can we try and figure out what's going on? So he was able to contact EMS that actually worked on her. And he was like, I don't want to give you any false hope, but she was shot in the head. And I immediately collapsed. All I remember was that people were like surrounding me, and they pushed me into another office because I was shaking. Like I literally had separated myself, that body disassociation. And then he told me that they were working on her in the hospital room, in the hotel room, as soon as they had seen her. And she coded twice, but they were able to get her over to the San Jose Regional Trauma Center. But she was stable at that point. And so when I contacted San Jose Regional and I told them who I was, they were like, we can't really confirm or deny because of the fact that she's a gunshot victim and they don't know anything. They don't know if I'm the one who shot her. Like she came in as a Jane Doe. And so I was trying to explain the situation because she couldn't speak for herself, right? And so I was just trying really hard to explain the situation. And I said, okay, I'm on my way. Contacted my family, and that's when I was texting everybody, letting them know, this is an emergency. We all need to go, right now. And little did I know that, that her murderer had also been logged into to her phone. So any messages that we were sending to her was going to him.
Well, you had
too.
visibility of them too. Okay.
Yeah. And then, the trauma center had given me, because after I gave them all her information, I was like, I can validate anything and everything you need from me, like her date of birth, just anything, her social, all of that. I had all of that. I could even show them her birth certificate, and then so they could hear in my voice that I was truly the person that they said that I was. So they gave me a PIN code. And so that if anybody had to contact or called in, they had to have that code in order to receive any kind of information. So I had shared that with the family. And then because we always tried to make sure that we were respectful of the maternal side of the family. We never wanted to make her feel like she was in this tug of war, because truly that's what people were making her feel. But I always wanted to make sure that we were always on the same page, because at the end of the day, it was always about Nikha. It wasn't about our feelings, their feelings, anybody. It was about Nikha. And so I let them know what was going on. And since they were closer to the trauma center versus us, because it was going to take us a while to get over there, I knew there was going to be traffic no matter what to get over there. So I told them if someone could just please be there with her. So we all ended up going over there. And when we got there, we were kind of sidelined. We almost did not get a chance to see her the first night that she was there, because the other side of the family was being they were being brutal to us, they were just, I don't know how else to say it, but just come on, why are you stopping us? I was the one that gave you all the information. I was the one that found her. You guys would never have known. I could have kept that information to myself, but I was like, no, I'm not. I need to put all that BS aside at this point, right?
Yeah, you're just trying to be there for Nikha.
It's always been about her. So when we finally did get to see her and they had talked to me, and told me what was the actual situation. Before I actually went into the room, the trauma center staff had introduced themselves to me, and that's when I met Ivan. Ivan was one of the core group of people that the very first instance, the very first contact that was made was him and that team. Just, I felt nothing but compassion and grace. And I know that that's something that they see all the time. But they made me feel like we were the only family that their focus was on. And that everything that we said, everything that we felt, we mattered. And, even though there was other cases that were happening and whatnot, like we had their full attention. One of the very first things that Ivan had told me was that there was no pressure at all, and that it wasn't even something that I needed to like think about at that point, but just to focus on me, on Nika, and just to know that they were a resource.
Yeah. Something you said yesterday when we were talking kind of struck me. And you said, when Ivan first got to you, donation was a secondary objective. He didn't come to you with, hey, how about donation? In that moment,
No.
it's all about how are you and how can I facilitate your family? What needs are there? I think that's important because as a designated requester, which Ivan is, and for those that are out there that are listening to this in the healthcare profession, I think just on a human level, we're human. We're all human. And as you can hear it in Annabelle's voice, at a base ground level, it's just humanity. And we're just trying to make sure that you're okay, your family's okay, your kids are okay. Have you had a bite to eat? Have you had a sip of water? Like, let's start from ground zero and let's just start with the basics. And I think when you and I talked about this, that really struck me because I think that's where it all needs to start. And here we are a couple years later, and to see that you still remember that there was that basis for conversation, it speaks volumes.
There was no pressure at all whatsoever. And that's truly it. The very first thing was, how are you holding up? That was so monumental for me because that was the first thing. Because we had been focusing on everything with Anika and everything. I did forget to eat. I did forget to drink water. I did forget everything. And when he had asked those just simple things, I was like, oh my gosh, that I don't remember. I don't even remember sleeping. And so that in of itself spoke volumes because donation wasn't even something that was even discussed until a few steps later. And I didn't feel pressured at all when it did finally come to that point where they told me that they were going to run a few tests. And if there wasn't any activity in her brain, then they would deem it a brain death. And that decision at that point would then fall on us as a family. But based on the hierarchy, it was actually going to go to my nephew, Nika's brother.
Yeah. I mean, that's another point to really touch on. And I think without sharing, if you don't mind, and I think this is kind of important, the hierarchy that a hospital follows in decision making is different than what an OPO would follow. It's vastly different from the way that OPO looks at it. The hierarchy that is utilized by an OPO, again, is not necessarily the same hierarchy. And so families have an issue sometimes because the person who had been making decisions during the hospitalization is not the same person who is going to be asked for donation. And in this instance, being that it was her adult brother, that adult was only at 19. Is that correct?
hmm
And
That's
so,
correct.
we're asking a 19-year-old to make life decisions for his older sister, asking him to make adult decisions when, I mean, he's barely an adult, and that's zero offense to him, but these are very difficult decisions for anybody to make. How did it go from that hierarchy of him being 19 to you making that decision?
Wait, before you answer that, Annabelle, I promise we're gonna get to that. I wanna back up just a little bit. I don't know that I've ever said this to you. You know, I think through these last few years, as I've developed a good connection with you and a working relationship and a professional relationship, and doing speaking, whether it was at Donor Network West and now on this podcast, I'm always so deeply moved by your gratitude for how I presented in the hospital, right? And there's always just a little bit of me that feels just a little uncomfortable with it, right? Because it's hard to accept that gratitude in that way. So let me accept it from this place, okay? I am one of so many amazing human beings that hold the position of designated requester. There's a whole part in my heart that says that I promise you, if you had met with any of my colleagues, if you had met with my colleague Ron Gardner or Linda Martinez, if you have met any member of our team, I'm very proud to be able to tell you that you would have been met with the same compassion, with the same care, with the same concern, and that's a very proud thing to be able to hold on to, right? Like, I will accept your gratitude on behalf of all designated requesters who do this kind of work. I am very honored that I was your person on that given day. And, as I mentioned when we were talking yesterday, that Nikha's story has changed my life. And you have changed my life and how I parent and how I do things. But I want to start accepting your gratitude from the place of a representative of a very special group. I'm an individual of an amazing team. And the hierarchy, we haven't delved really deeply into the work that the designated requester does to navigate the dynamics in the hospital, right? Like, who is a legal next of kin? The hospital could choose to use a spokesperson that isn't actually the legal next of kin. Their parameters of who they could take medical decisions from are very different than the parameters that an organ procurement organization needs to use. By law and obligation, we have to follow the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act hierarchy. That's very well defined for us. In Nikki's case, her biological mom was deemed reasonably unavailable. We did everything we could to find her. We knew that at the time that we responded to the hospital, she was at the time incarcerated. She was in custody. We attempted everything we could to try to make contact with her. Bobby, yesterday I said I met my obligation to try to find a biological mom, right? And when I said that, Bobby corrected me and said, Ivan doesn't do things out of obligation. He does things out of humanity. And I really thank you. And also, yes, the designated requester has the obligation to follow that hierarchy that's defined by the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. By the time we got to her brother, we had done everything possible to reach out to her mom. And the next step was her brother. And I'm very glad for him that you were present.
Yeah, he actually was just floored. He was like, I don't want to make that decision. He's like, I'm not even at that point where I can even make those kinds of decisions. And so he said, you were the one that raised her. Like, you do it. I'm assigning you to do it. And so that's when we made sure that we had to get the power of attorney by the court and legally. I was sharing yesterday, even when I took custody of her, even though that was something that she agreed upon and she wanted, I wanted to make sure that everything was done correctly and by the book. We just wanted to make sure that we had our ducks in a row, so to speak.
And for the record, I remember the meeting where I was speaking to Andrew, and he is like, No, she's going to make the decision. I'm giving this to her."
Yeah.
I remember that. No.
Yeah,
It's important to
yeah.
think in these situations. He was 19. Either he did, maybe he didn't have any conversations with her about donation, but he didn't feel equipped at that moment. And all grace to him for understanding and realizing he wasn't equipped at that moment. It is 100% the availability of the person who is given that decision-making power to be able to transfer that power to somebody else. Because what ends up happening, and it's not even just in this instance, but we've seen in cases with a wife or, a sibling who is unable to just, they are not in a place of rational thinking. They're completely overwhelmed with decision making. And they say, listen, I can't do it. And I fully trust this person to do that decision making. It doesn't remove them from that, at least. So in this instance, I mean, I'm glad that he had you there because, I mean, it seems in everything that I've looked at, everything I've read, you were the person to be making this decision.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of animosity from the other side too, because they're like, "Why does she always get to do it?" And it was like,
It sounds like you had a gigantic role in her life. I mean, you didn't play a small role. And again, you had a lead role in her life. So you talked about coming to the hospital, seeing Ivan. There's a lot of things that happened during this hospitalization. What do you remember most about this hospital? What's something that you constantly revisit? Because there's a couple things that you pointed out to me.
the very first thing that when I had gone to her, I had called out her name and her eyes did flutter and she started making these gurgling sounds. So that it's like she knew I was there. I needed to know that she was there. I needed her in some way, somehow acknowledge that she knew I was there. And I truly feel that she was. And so, like, that gave me hope that she knew that she trusted me. She trusted the situation for what it was, right? And that I was gonna do everything that I can just for her as I always have done. Before we left that first night, the trauma surgeon had approached us and said that there was a couple of things that they still needed to do, kind of figure out where she stood in terms of stability and her health. And they said she's very sick. We don't know what the outcome is going to be because she's stable, but there's things happening inside of her that we need to keep track of. And they were showing me scans of her brain, and they basically told me that her brain stem had shattered with the impact of the bullet going through the backside of her ear. We only saw one bullet hole. And so they said that impact had shattered her brain stem. And it was explained to me was that it controlled who she was. Because my kids, especially Gigi, was not accepting the fact that she was gone because they were tickling her feet and she was moving back. Like her reflexes were, she was still moving in response to things. But they told me that that portion of the brainstem is what controls herself. And I guess because I am very spiritual, I would think that is what her soul was. That's where that controlled like who she was. That's what controlled like Nika's personality, everything that was fun loving about her. That part was dying. They told me too that her pupils weren't reacting to the light and that in the morning they were going to do a test where they took her off of the machine to see if she could breathe on her own. And if she started declining rapidly, then of course they would put her back on, but that would show that she was not able to sustain her own life through her own means. And so they did that. They told me that was going to be the next steps. So in the morning when I had gone there, on my way there, they were doing the tests and they contacted me and said that they had deemed her brain dead at that point. And so when we got there, that we would have to start making decisions as to what we wanted to do. And I knew at that point that's what we needed to make the decision for donation. And that was just really, really hard for us.
How did the option of donation, like when it first came up, how was that presented? And did Nika and you ever have any discussion about donation?
We did not personally, but I will give you a background story on why I immediately said yes. So when my dad was 38, he had suffered his first cardiac arrest. and he was suffering from complications of diabetes. So they put him on the transplant list, and to hear that, it was like a death sentence for us. It felt like he was gonna pass away, and he was so young. We were still really young. And so he was on the transplant list for a month and a half. And I still remember to this day when we got the call in the middle of the night that my dad had a match, and I was praying so hard. When we got that call, it was like a second chance at life. And so I still remember that feeling. And I know if we did get a second chance with our dad, we got an extended period of time, even though it ended up failing a year later, his body rejected it a year later. That still gave us enough time.
Man, how did I not know this? So not only
Yeah,
a donor family, you're a recipient family.
correct. Correct.
My mind is blown right now.
You know, Annabelle, in having conversations with families, one of the things that we hear a lot, why do you want my loved one's organs? He's not healthy. Like those organs are sick, you know? How can you possibly give his kidneys to someone? He's not doing well. And I often respond, even with the injuries and the illness being what they are for your loved one, his kidneys are still better than the kidneys of those who are waiting on that transplant list. And even in the case where your father, for example, who was given an additional year on this earth with his family, you can't put a value to that. You can't say, well, how much life was given, right? How
We got
much
14 extra years though. So even though his body had, yeah, so even though his body had
14
rejected that,
extra years.
we got 14 extra years after that. Yes. So that's
That's a
still
that's a
like,
testimony. That is
yeah,
a
yeah.
testimony.
Is
And
I'm always going to advocate for conversations to be happening between families. When you have a family that has that's a recipient family and truly understands the value of what happens when somebody needs and been impacted, the decision for donation, I will say, is almost crystal clear. I'm going to say almost because I've had recipient families who have actually said no, but for their own reasons. It's unreal. I'm going to take a second, do a commercial break here. So before we continue, I do want to thank our sponsors who help Honor Talk.
Living Legacy Expressions, a company dedicated to helping people heal, remember, and reconnect through one simple but powerful act: writing what's on your heart. Living Legacy Expressions creates dissolving message cards. Small, water-soluble cards designed for moments when words alone aren't enough. You or a loved one simply write a message to someone lost, a loved one you miss, or even to yourself as part of your own healing journey, and then let it drift into water. As the card dissolves, it symbolizes release of pain, guilt, love, or remembrance. These cards have brought comfort to people walking through grief, families honoring organ donors, those healing from addiction, and even pet owners saying goodbye to a loyal friend. They're more than cards, they're moments of grace. When given as a gift, they become a quiet way to show care, offering someone you love the space to let go, remember, and find healing in their own time. Because sometimes healing begins not with what we hold on to, but with what we're willing to release. You can learn more and explore all their designs at livinglegacyexpressions.com. That's livinglegacyexpressions.com, where you will find gifts meant to be felt, not kept.
Okay, so we're back with Annabelle Velasquez, and we're telling the amazing legacy and life and donation of Nikki. Yes.
When we left off, we were talking about families who have a recipient in their structure, and sometimes the conversation isn't even needed, right? And you owned saying, well, there's been some families, right?
Yep.
It's not an automatic. Yeah. Yeah. So even in that, Annabelle, the decision that you made, never an easy one and never a given, even when you have your story in your back.
right. Because I still had the hurdles and the obstacles of having to explain to other members of the family that weren't as willing to give up parts. They said, I don't want to give up parts of her. And I was like, that's not what we're doing. And I had to remind them, remember when Papa had gotten the transplant? It was just having to reiterate, this is truly a gift. This is truly a gift.
Oh, there's so many factors involved, but in the moment, you hope for the gift. In that moment, you just hope for some kind of a miracle to be able to get worked. But the unfortunate truth and reality of it is there's so many factors that are taken into place to make sure that what we're giving is truly a gift and not a curse. We definitely don't want to do harm. So that's a hard one.
But we understood.
Can you tell me, I know that there was aspects of the donation process where Nikki she was honored. Can you tell me, was there an honor walk? Like what, can you tell me a little bit about how she was honored within the hospital?
So when we did make the decision to go ahead and proceed with donation, I did want to mention that there was this big long checklist that we were going over. And I specifically remember that Ivan took as much time as he needed to explain to all of us what each line meant, if we fully understood, and if there was any questions, he did not proceed to the next question until we were all clear and comfortable. And so I did want to say thank you for that, because we went into the donation process fully knowing what we were doing. There was no questions at all. And so I just wanted to say that was something that was very important that I still remember to this day, where no one could ever say we didn't know what this was going to be. So we were informed every step and every part of the way. And so after we had signed all of it, there was the process that Ivan had explained that, phone calls were going to be made, all of that, but all in that time frame, we were going to honor Nika, to be saying thank you to her. And so we did a raising of the flag that night. And that day, Nika's mom was able to get out of jail. And so we were able to work it. So she got bailed out and she got dropped off to the hospital. I still have pictures. I took pictures for her so that she would have something for her. And I didn't want to intrude on that moment. I wanted to give that time to her, because there's still moments of pieces of me that felt guilty for taking and enjoying Nika when I felt that she should have been doing that. But since she wasn't available, I was going to enjoy every second, every moment that I could. When she got out of jail, I wanted to at least give her that time with her daughter. She ended up leaving that day. She got picked up, and we're making plans to do the raising of the flag. And Ivan had explained that meant, and it was just that moment of silence, that we're going to honor the decision. And then after that, he had shared with me, then there was going to be the honor walk. And that I didn't understand what that meant until, I had looked at some of what an honor walk, just to kind of know what to expect from other people's perspectives. And I was like, I don't want to watch anymore because it was just so, I wasn't prepared for that. But because it was this finality, my last few moments to get to hold her hand, and that she was going to be leaving us for good. But the whole hospital, like I said, it was during COVID. And so there was that 2-person, there's only 2 people that were allowed inside the room. I guess, word had gotten around, because I was constantly there. Every single guard, whatever shift they were on, they all knew who I was, because I was coming at all hours and all days. I had even gotten a hotel room close by. Even when I wasn't there, I was constantly calling them. They knew who I was. And so I guess word had gotten around that this was going to happen, and the security guards and everybody else that we had talked to made a way for me and my kids and my mom to participate in the honor walk. And that meant so much to me. So it started out with me and my mom. We were leaving the ICU room and we were walking. And as we were nearing the OR, the doors opened and my kids, because they were like, we're going to get you in, we're going to get you in. And they broke protocol, but that was the thing. They knew that these are people, these are human beings, these are people. They're saying goodbye to their daughter, their sister, their cousin, their loved one. And I can't thank them enough. I can't thank them enough for allowing us that time, because that was the only time that we were ever going to have with her again,
Annabelle,
But
I do want to take a moment, and I want to give the hospital a very direct shout out.
yes,
San Jose Regional Medical Center at the time of COVID, like many hospitals in the country, they were having a very hard time with the visitation policies and how to navigate getting people in and out of the hospital. For the honor walk, they had announced it to all of the staff to be present, to be available, and they were going to limit how many people could be in there. I very specifically remember the moment when the security guard looked over at me and told me to open the ambulance bay doors for the family. And he didn't have to say anything. He just looked over and gave me the nod to open the door so that the family could come in. And there was not one person at San Jose Regional Medical Center that attempted to stop or impede the family's moment. And I want to give them a shout out, because
yes,
it's something that they did consciously. They did that. They made it happen. The security team stepped up. The care team really stepped up. And I do want to say, so that you hear from one of us, that the honor walk is meant for Nikha, so that we can all honor, respect, and dignify the gift of life that she is giving to others. And a byproduct of what is happening is that it allows us as healthcare workers, as members of the organ procurement team, to connect to the mission on a humanistic level, because we really need to maintain that connection so that we can have the drive, so that we could continue showing up, so that we remain focused on the mission of saving lives. And for that, I want to say a thank you to every family, to yours specifically, to allow that moment to occur, because as much as it is for the family, it is for the staff to heal their hearts as well. And it was a beautiful honor walk.
it was. I had not seen so many people in that hallway because of COVID, right? Like, you saw the hospital at that point, like where it just seemed like a ghost town. You hardly saw anybody walking unless it was like patient care or anything like that. But the amount, it was full. Like, from the time that we left the trauma bay all the way up until when we got to the actual OR, tons of people like lined up, and we felt so supported. And yeah, it was to honor Nikha. It was truly a beautiful thing.
For those that are listening and are wondering what an honor walk is, an honor walk is for this family, as you can hear it in Annabelle's voice. An honor walk is for this family a manifestation of humanity, love, all poured in to the very end, when we are moving towards the operating room and we are at the finale and ready to give her the legacy and all the honor that she is due. And what ends up happening is you have Nikha is in a bed, and she's followed directly behind by her immediate family and members of the care team who have been caring for her. And she's taken from the ICU typically and on her way to the operating room for the recovery of these gifts and the beginning of this legacy. And the halls are lined, completely lined, with people who have had either direct or indirect care for her, and they're showing their respect, typically bowing their heads, and they're just standing by. Most of them, eyes are filled and welled with tears. Some people are making a sign of a cross. Others will give gestures to the family as we pass, showing love. And when we do get to the operating room doors, the doors open, the families say their final goodbyes, and she's pushed across the red line. This is probably one of the most impactful moments of this entire process. And not just for the family. This impact is felt and reverberated through the entire hospital because every member of the team, both direct or indirect care, down to the security guards at the door, everybody feels it in that moment. And it shapes and it changes you, whether you're ready for it or not.
And that's the one thing that I felt was, and I saw like how many people were there. Like it just blew my mind as to how many people were actually there to show their respects, and also to be able to see like how many people were actually helping with her care. You know, it was there after we had said our goodbyes and after she was received into the operating room, there was a lot of people that had come up to me and said when she had first come into the hospital, they were like the first people that received her, or that, you know, even the first trauma surgeon that came in, she just said she could not stop thinking about us and how affected she was by what she had seen, and that it just blew my mind how many people came up to me to really say that they cared, you know? And that to me was the very first moment that I knew that she was going to be shaping lives in ways that she would never understand.
I think it's something that families don't understand and they don't realize is that as much as we probably don't realize how much of an impact we have as healthcare professionals, especially in that moment in your life, you and your family, Nikha specifically, shape our lives. It's impossible to go through these situations and through these cases and not take something away that gives shape to the way that we move about, the way we act as humans, the way we treat our kids, the way we welcome our wives or husbands. That is going to impact us no matter if we're ready for it or you're not. And for that, I say thank you as a family, because I know that we have undoubtedly had an impact on your family and your life, but that's my job. That's what I do. It's my passion, but it is my job. It's what we do. You had no obligation whatsoever to shape my life or shape Ivan's life, but undoubtedly it does give shape to our lives as well. And I don't think that the families understand or realize. I think it's worth saying thank you to all the families that are listening, and you and Nikha as well. So with that, I want to say she moves into the honor walk. She crosses the red line and she goes on to save who? How many? Do we know?
Yes. So what ended up being actually donated was her one lung, two of her liver was split into two, one was given to a child, both her kidneys, and one pancreas. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's amazing.
6.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
man.
we still, the amazing part of this is that we still don't know the depth of the impact, because we've heard one of the stories that you shared with us about the recipient, but
Yeah.
there are still multitudes of stories to be told, and it's still unfolding. That is the amazing thing, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you at some later time, because it's inevitable where a family's going to pop up, they'll write or they'll make the connection, and it's a beautiful thing.
This is the part that I think is impactful. Definitely took me by storm. For the listeners that are out there, it's already a rarity. Donation is already a rarity. But then you look at the potential for taking a liver and splitting a liver and being able to do 2 recipients for 1 liver. I mean, I've been doing this over a decade now. I could probably count on one hand, maybe 2, how many times that it's been attempted to do a split liver to 2 different recipients. Attempted and successful, a handful. So this is another rarity. And from what I understand, tell us what you know about this.
So one of the very first things that Ivan had shared with me when I was in the process of, filling out that form, and he told me, because I couldn't stop crying. It was just like, and he was there with me. Like, and I do want to also share too that I know that you guys are humans and you have to take breaks too. And when Ivan had to leave for the weekend because, He couldn't work like
Dare you?
7 days straight.
It was 1 day. It was 1 day.
Right. But he did a warm handoff and he introduced me. He gave me their card. He gave me the phone number and the contact, so I knew that I was in very good hands. And I do want to say thank you, because when you said that comment that you made earlier, that I would be met with the same kind of care and compassion, even if it was another person, I know that because I experienced that myself. So I want to, I never want to diminish any of that, because I truly do. Like, I gave you and your staff and anyone that covered for you guys a run for your money, because I was asking questions all the time. I was posing questions left and right because I wanted to be fully informed. Like, this was not just a decision for the light-hearted, I guess you could say. This was my child. This was something that I knew was not just going to impact her legacy, but this was something that was going to affect many other lives. And I wanted to be fully informed. And I was met with the same kind of care and compassion with every single person that I met. So yes, I can fully say, yes, I do agree with you. But when I was filling out that form, and Ivan had shared something that still sticks with me, there's so many things, right? But one of the things that he said was that in all the years that he had been doing this, our loved one will always reach out some way, somehow. Like, there will be a moment, there will be a sign, but there will always be something that they show that they're still around and that they live on, and that this is not the end. And so I was also told that after donation, it comes from both sides, both the recipient's family, the recipient, and the donation, the organ donor's family will have the opportunity, if we want, right? It has to be a mutual agreement and decision that, to either meet up or correspond or something, but that will always be done, like, as with Donor Network being a liaison. And so I was so open to that. And so after a few months, I got a letter from the care team in regards to the pediatric liver split, and it was a baby, and it was a letter from the dad. And he basically said that he was so grateful that we were giving his child another chance at life, and that they just couldn't say enough words to say how happy they were, how grateful, but at the same time that he was filled with guilt, because in order for his baby to live, mine had to die. And I didn't want that feeling at all. Like, I didn't want him to feel that way, because what happened happened. It was not she had to in order for his child. Like, it wasn't even like that wasn't a cause or effect, right? And so I was like trying so hard to write the perfect letter. And months had passed because I just kept rewriting it, and I was like, okay, fine, this is fine, I guess. So I even had the care team look it over to be like, does this sound okay? They're like, if it's from your heart, then everything is perfect. And in that time frame, I ended up getting a letter from their mom, from the child's mom, and I just couldn't stop bawling. Like, it was just like, so it was just another letter of gratitude. And then at the very bottom, her name that she signed was Nikki, and it went back to that moment that Ivan had told me that our loved one will come out and reach out. And I was laughing because I was like, how appropriate. How appropriate. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. But I was just laughing because I was like, Nika is showing herself to me. And it's like she's being reborn. Part of her is being reborn and getting to live a life with two parents. So it's just.
That's a man. When you told me that today, we were talking about this in screening, and you said that she had signed this letter and she signed it Nikki. And of course, that's what I'm calling her. And I thought, man, that it's almost like Nika wrote you a thank you letter.
Yes. That's the way that I saw it, because I was laughing. That's why I was laughing, because I was like, she's reaching out to me. And it just made me feel so good, so good.
Annabelle, I have something that that all designated requesters want to know. I promise you. It sounds like the spirit in your family was that that donation, if presented to you, that it was going to be a yes. That's clear, right? Is there any narrative? Could we have done something to mess that up? Could we have changed your yes into a no? Could we have ruined it?
I honestly don't know the answer to that because we, you know what? You probably could have if you didn't treat us with compassion and kindness and that we were feeling pressured. I think that would have changed our mind.
For those
Like, if the
listening,
very first thing that you told me, like, when I first met you, like, "Hey, you know, just to let you know, we've got these papers ready to sign," like, if that's how you came at me, then I would have been like, "No," But if you had approached us differently, then and without the care and compassion, so that means so much. That means so much to us, and that it if you yeah.
I shared yesterday during the screening call that Bobby and our goals are we have different goals. And my goal in being a part of this is I'm very eager for OPOs, for designated requesters specifically to listen in and to hear from families directly and to hear you say you could have messed that up. Have you not led with care and compassion? Have you had you made me feel pressured? Had you sped in with paperwork? Those things could have ruined the spirit that was already present of giving the gift of life. And I do want to highlight that because even though the spirit of giving and the spirit of a yes is present, the ability to approach in the appropriate manner still dictates the outcome of the conversation, right? So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
It sure does. It sure does. Thank you for asking.
yeah, I mean, even though the goals that I have for this podcast and the goals that would like for this podcast are, they're, I would say they're aligned, but on different levels. But I will say this, it comes back to that whole thing about just being human. It comes back to that whole thing about humanity because I'm going to take it a step further. It's not just designated requesters. It's hospital staff in general, and I think if you're listening to this and you are a member of the healthcare team, if you're a physician, if you are an OPO, if you work for an OPO, I think that it's worth noting that just treating people with kindness and respect and humanity goes a long way because at the end of the day, we all are the same. We all put on our pants one leg at a time. We all have families that we all want to go back home to. And if you don't mind me sharing, one aspect of this that you said was obviously you've mentioned your sister was incarcerated at one period or another, and by some societal standards, she has not been treated to that same regard as if she was this upstanding citizen. But in the moment and while she was there, she was treated on a level of just a human. She's a mother losing a child. She wasn't like, well, look at this person that's coming in from the jail, freshly from the jail, and she was looked down upon. She was treated with kindness and respect and humanity, and she was given the same dignified ability to say goodbye to her daughter. She wasn't treated differently, and that goes so far in today's society.
It does. It does. And I have to say that Ivan showed her more compassion than her own sister, and that's when Ivan had to step in, and he was still very professional because he did it in a way that was loving and coming from a place of care versus like, "You shouldn't be talking to her this way," especially in front of all of us. Her daughter is literally, like, dying. I That's when I said I had to step back and say like, "Wow, that is amazing." Like how he handled the situation, and I can't say enough. Compassion and grace and care go so far, especially in these types of situations.
Yeah.
Annabelle, I suppose this part of what I want to say is, again, directed very specifically for anyone who has a donation discussion. But, I have a bias for designated requesters. They're my people. I will say to you that it's very amazing that designated requesters, people who train for this, people who decide to do this, because it is a decision to do what we do. You know, there were very complicated dynamics, family dynamics that were playing out in the hospital, you know, and I was telling Bobby that, you know, designated requesters have to get right into the middle of that and hold the space for everyone who's there. The person who's grieving, the person who's angry, the person who's ready, the person who doesn't want to be there. And to make that moment a holistic space and time where people can feel and go through their emotions is quite amazing. And I, again, back to the statement that that's who designated requesters are. So some of us, you know, as you get seasoned in this, you get better at, more adept at being able to do that. But it does take a skill set to be able to be in that room and to hold all of those emotions and to be able to be present and address everything that's going on. You have to be the center of a storm for a family who's going through the worst moment of their life. And I really commend anyone who decides to be able to do that, to get in there. And that moment where I address the behavior, you know, part of me, I'm very blessed in being able to feel like I could identify with other human beings, right? No matter where they are, whether they're a doctor, whether they are a recovering addict, wherever they are in the spectrum of life, I feel like I've been blessed and gifted with the ability to connect. So when I was seeing her get treated like that, it genuinely was hurting me, and I just couldn't listen to the way that she was being talked to as a mom, you know. And even now, right? Like even now, it feels so visceral because it felt as though she was being treated as a child. And, and I didn't think that was fair to her. And I didn't think that was fair for everyone else that was witnessing that also, right? But that's the skill set of the designated requester, or, well, no. The clinical people are kind of cool too, but designated requesters.
Thank you.
That skill set is very unique. And I'm glad I was there. And I'm glad it didn't feel like anything other than what it was, right? It's just kindness and keeping things moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, you're running the gamut of all these emotions and the family that's going through something like this. And, you know, we've said this before on previous podcasts, Ivan, but you have to meet the family where they're at. That doesn't mean that they're all in the same place. And there is no right or wrong way to grieve. I mean, obviously there's like vastly wrong, but don't get me wrong, there are some some pretty bad ones. But for the most part, speaking in general, there's not a right or wrong way. Some people have complete fallout and just can't even breathe. Some people completely shut down. Some people act like there's nothing going on. And some people are just so angry. And you're put into a position now where you have to be able to wrangle in all of those people. They're all in the same room and get them all to refocus on what the true goal here. And the true goal here is the care and the compassion of the person that's laying in the bed. And sometimes those people don't want to coexist. And it's really hard because you're only there for a very limited period of time. You don't want these people to come back later on and say they wish they would have done X or Y or Z. So you're trying your best to try and make sure that they take advantage of this and make the room and that space their own within their own right. And it's hard because another thing, you said yes to donation, and there's going to be people out there that are going to be coming out of the woodwork to say thank you. Eventually, these recipients will reach out. Now, it's not often that is talked about when it comes to the recipients and the recipient guilt. I think you touched on it, and I think that, you know, they mentioned that it's difficult to know that Nikha had to pass away in order for their loved one to live on. That's a true feeling, that there is such a thing as recipient guilt. And the same way that you were saying you were rewriting the letter over and over because you want to make sure it's perfect to send it to them, I would say that same sentiment is on the other side. That same sentiment is 100% felt. They don't know how to reach out to you. They don't know what are the words. How do you tell a mom thank you? How do you say thank you to somebody that has gone through everything that we've been talking about over the past hour? How do you come back to a mom and say thank you? You don't say thank you, but you do say thank you. And so it's kind of this tug of war of emotions, because I'm so overjoyed that you saved my loved one, but we also want to honor Nikha. So with that in mind, if there's a recipient out there that's listening, whether it's a recipient of Nikha or just a recipient in general, someone who carries a part of your loved one or someone who just carries a part of a loved one, what would you tell them?
So, to the recipients themselves, I wanted to say, for those that are carrying pieces of my child, I've thought about you more times than I can count. And I've wondered how you're doing, what your days feel like, if you've ever felt something you couldn't explain, a sudden warmth, a wave of peace, maybe even love that you didn't know where it had come from. If you ever have, maybe it was her, or maybe it was me, loving every aspect of her that now lives in you. And please don't ever feel guilty, because even though the choice was ours to make, if she could have spoken for herself, she would have said yes without hesitation, because that's who she was. She was full of love, light, and always giving, even when she had nothing left to give. And if there were moments that when you notice things you can't quite explain, the little quirks, mannerisms, emotions that feel new, don't question them too much, because that might be just her shining through. And that I would love to meet you one day and to see the life that she helped to continue. But if you're not ready, that's okay, because there's no pressure and there's only love coming from my side. But because if we had ever got a chance to meet, even if we don't, I already feel connected to you by something stronger than words and stronger than my loss. I just want them to know that through you, she still lives, and I thank you for that. And through you, she still breathes, and through you, her love still carries on. So I really just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the family of the baby reaching out being the very first step and getting that as a very first sign, with the mom reaching out and signing it Nikki.
That was so much for me.
That is so, those that are listening, you can hear it in Annabelle's voice alone that she only shares gratitude. She understands, she's fully aware of what happened to Nikha. It's an unfortunate turn of events that were manifested in domestic violence, but the beauty that has come from it is now set to bloom, and she's ready to hear your voices. She's ready to hear your stories, and maybe one day meet you. You shared with me that when you first got to the hospital, that you said this to me yesterday, actually. You saw Ivan and you knew right away that he was going to be somebody that was going to be a key player in this decision making. And not always is the experience as positive for families. Not always do they have the ability or the grace, sometimes, depending on the situation. And sometimes families are put into a position and asked about donation, and they've never had this conversation before. They've never touched base on what the end-of-life care looks for them. Nikha was only 20. This is not a conversation that typically comes up around the dining room table to talk about what your wishes would be. So with that being said, there's going to be families that are out there listening. There's going to be families that are going to find these episodes, and they're going to grasp to this because they're listening to you. They're listening to your voice. They're listening to your story. But if there's a family out there that's listening right now and they're sitting with the option of donation, maybe they're sitting in a hospital room, maybe they're struggling with this decision, what would you say to those families?
So first thing, I know what it feels like to be standing in that place where your world has just crashed, it's stopped, and now you're being asked to make a decision that you never thought that you'd want to face. And when my child had passed, I didn't want to hear about, the organ donation right then and there. Like, I just wanted to be by her. I didn't want anyone pulling on her. I just wanted to be with her. And then I remembered that who she was, her kindness, her selfless spirit, her big heart. And I realized that if she had the choice, she would have said yes. She would have given even in her last moments because that's who she was. But by me saying yes, I didn't mean that I was letting her go. It meant that I was letting her love and parts of her live on. And somewhere out there, pieces of her are still breathing, still beating, still bringing light to others. And sometimes I wonder, if they're feeling me and my love reaching through. But if you're struggling with that decision, there's no right or wrong. There's no yes or no. This is a personal decision. If you do say yes, you're not just saving lives, you're allowing your loved one's story to keep going. But even if you say no, that's your personal decision, and that's something, don't carry any of that guilt with you, because even through whatever, you're still going to get the same kind of support no matter what. So I just want them to know that those decisions, there's no right or wrong answer, Even through all of the darkest pain, our love will still find a way to live on regardless of whether or not you say yes or no.
Well put.
And that was the one thing that I think that Ivan made sure that I understood too, that even if I said no, it was okay. No matter what, there was no pressure. And that's what I want to reiterate too, that, and I've spoken about this before, we didn't feel like we were being pressured. But regardless, there was no right or wrong answer. And I just wanted to reiterate that too.
The way I want to close this out is you shared something with me that I thought was powerful. And I mean, you've shared a lot with me, but yesterday we talked, and because of Nikha's situation, she suffered a gunshot wound. And this gunshot wound came as an act of violence, domestic violence being it. And when we first started the conversation yesterday, you started off by telling me your work. If you could just tell the listeners, if you don't mind, what is, and I think part of that I want you to end too with is Nikha's law and what you see. What does that look like for you, and why is that important?
So I felt really connected to what was happening to Nikha when I found out, because I am a survivor of human trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence. And even though I was advocating out there for all of that and I saw all the signs, I still could not stop what happened to her. And when I found out that she was getting hit, she had all of the signs where she was deflecting the blame. She was the one that was giving him the black eye. She was the one that was doing things to him. When she first told me, oh, I'm the one giving him the black eye, that immediately told me that he had given her a black eye already. That was just and there was a point in time where she was not coming to see us, and I think it was because she was covering up. I would have been like, what's going on here? And even so, they were together almost 3 years. I wanted to make sure that she was being treated the way that she was supposed to be treated. And that was actually the last thing that I told him when they left my house, was that if you're not taking care of her in the way and the manner that she should be taken care of, you're going to answer to me, because that is my baby. And I am holding true to that. So every court appearance, every single court date, I don't care. He sees me. I'm going to make sure that you see me, because I am holding true to that promise that I made to my brother when I became her godmother, to Nikha when I won custody of her, and then she passed away. She was not going to die in vain. And so what I see is having a domestic violence registry that has restraining or convicted restraining orders, because you can contact a county courthouse and ask if there are restraining orders against a person, but we don't have a database like that. So you'd have to contact each of the courthouses to see if someone has a violent history. And so I want to create a database so that people know who they're dealing with. And I would love for it to be named after Nikha. The legacy, not only with the gift that she started with the donation, but I feel like she's going to be saving lives. Again, not through just the organ donation, but through would happen to her.
Yeah, through that act of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, I really, it's such a impactful thing to be able to do, and it's noble for sure to be able to
Thank
stand
you.
behind this. And I hope that somebody out there listening can help Annabelle push this forward to make Nikha's law a reality. Let's not wait.
Yes.
We are such a reactive society that I think that it's time for us to start getting proactive. And it's unfortunate that it is going to be Nikha's law because it's a reactive thing. But if it's going to happen, it needs to happen, and I hope somebody out there listening can help that push that agenda forward. I'm going to close out the podcast with this. You told me that you were there in the beginning and you held her hand in the beginning. And when you got to that red line, you held that hand at the end. And you said you'd never take away from the mother because the mother was always going to be the biological mother. But in your heart, blood couldn't make you any closer. And I want the people at home to hear this because I think it's worth hearing. This is a post that she shared with me. And I'm going to do my best to read it. This is a post that Nikha posted on a social platform, and it's about Annabelle. She ain't rich, but I've never not had food in my mouth, clothes on my back, and shoes on my feet. I love my mama. She ain't my real mom, though she damn right acts like one. I'm blessed and I'm thankful for her. Annabelle, taking nothing away from her mom, you were her mom. And I want to say thank you for sharing the life and the legacy, because I think that this is an absolutely beautiful story. I hate the way that it came to be, but I think that these stories need to be told. So it is my honor to be able to make her one of our very first episodes on Honor Talk.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share her story.
Absolutely. If you or somebody that you know is a victim of domestic violence or suicide, we're going to add in the show notes lines and hotlines for suicide prevention and for domestic violence. Thank you so much for joining us today.